What if I told you that hidden within the pages of Death Note lies a deep and unsettling reflection of our own history? A tale not just about gods of death and supernatural notebooks, but of humanity's darkest temptation, conquering absolute power and influence over others. Light Yagami begins as a brilliant, seemingly moral young man, but by the end, he becomes the embodiment of a cruel dictator. His story isn't mere fiction, it's a mirror that reflects the nature of political extremism. In this video, my idea is to unravel how Death Note transcends being just an intriguing and well-written anime. It transforms into a clear allegory for the dangers of unchecked power, the cult of personality, and the corruption that lies within human nature. If you're interested in this type of analysis, consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video. It's certainly the best way to show your appreciation for this type of work. But before we dive into this, let's clarify an important point. The term extremist is often misused, especially online. Randomly labeling people as fascists or communists is not accurate or helpful. These words have weight, and misusing them only makes reasonable dialogue impossible. Take, for example, those who claim that American democracy could be turned into Hitler's Germany by Donald Trump, or even Mao's China by someone like Bernie Sanders. Such hyperbolic statements demonstrate ignorance about the strength of the United States institutions and the power of its constitution. These are obviously absurd comparisons. No, Light Yagami wouldn't vote for Trump. He would likely just see Trump as an idiot. But with that said, examining Death Note from a serious and precise perspective can help us understand what it truly means to be an extremist. At first glance, the narrative of the anime doesn't seem political at all. The story is mostly a supernatural thriller. However, during the development of the narrative, intriguing questions are raised. What is the meaning of justice? Do the ends justify the means? If you had the power to punish people for their crimes, what would you do? How would you use that power? These questions carry political implications. They might not be political themselves, but they certainly carry the political implication. They echo themes from infamous works like The Prince by Machiavelli. The prince here could easily represent the young men aspiring to be the god of a new world, which is exactly the story Death Note's trying to tell. Light Yagami's transformation starts innocently enough. A brilliant yet bored young man stumbles upon a notebook granting him the ultimate power, the ability to kill anyone with a name and a face. And that's what's so dangerous about this type of power. His motives appear noble. He wishes to rid the world of criminals and create a utopia, free from injustice, an ideal reality, a perfect world. But real extremism often begins with seemingly good intentions. Idealistic views promising heaven on earth is often the perfect birthplace for totalitarianism. Creating a perfect world would require immense sacrifice, probably your freedom, maybe even your life. If that's the case, would that be worth it? History is filled with leaders who promised paradise, only to deliver tyranny. Light's journey mirrors countless real-world figures. We can think of Stalin, Mussolini, Hitler, and probably many other dictators that existed throughout the 20th century and in other moments of history. Like Light, these individuals believed they had the right to decide who lived and who died. Light's willingness to kill innocent people, anyone who opposes his ideal world, becomes apparent. He truly believes his actions are morally justified, as his goal is noble. In his mind, the ends completely justify the means. What makes Light particularly dangerous isn't just his intellect or the Death Note's supernatural powers, it's his charisma. As Kira, he becomes a savior to millions. People worship him because he seems to have their best interest at heart. He punishes criminals, making the world feel safer. Yet, his following resembles a cult of personality, not unlike the regimes of the 1900s. Stalin had his propaganda, Hitler had his rallies, Mussolini had his parades. Light has his global followers, people who see him as the divine arbiter of justice. But here's the irony. In his quest for a perfect world, Light becomes the very thing he despises, a murderer. His belief in his moral superiority blinds him to his own hypocrisy. Isn't that the essence of extremism? The belief that one's cause is so righteous, so pure, that any means, no matter how violent, are justified.
So what that comes down to is saying that had the radiant tomorrow actually been created, the loss of 15, 20 million people might have been justified.
Yes.
In political theory, a defining trait of the state is its monopoly on violence, the exclusive right to use force. Through the Death Note, Light acquires a similar status. His ability to kill surpasses any institution's power, even the police. While he doesn't technically hold a monopoly on violence, since he's considered a criminal himself, his power to enforce his will through violence is absolutely unmatched. He doesn't need to raid buildings, chase cars, or risk his life. He simply writes a name on a piece of paper. History teaches us that power without accountability is the root of tyranny. Kira is judge, jury, and executioner. There's no due process, no checks and balances, just the cold, absolute finality of his pen. All of the power is literally in the palm of his hands. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of Light's transformation is how ordinary he seems at the start. A good student, probably has a much above average IQ for instance. He seems to be a loving son, a young man, capable of contributing to society in countless ways. There's nothing inherently evil about him until the Death Note falls into his hands. This echoes Browning's study in Ordinary Men. The soldiers of the National Socialist government in Germany were not born killers. They were husbands, fathers, and neighbors who, under the right conditions, committed atrocities. The haunting truth is that almost anyone, given power and circumstances, can become a monster. Light's descent reminds us that evil doesn't always come with horns and a tail. Sometimes it wears the face of a brilliant, charismatic, and seemingly ordinary person. Like the totalitarian leaders of history, Light begins with a personal vision of a better world, or at least what he considers to be a better world. But as his power grows, his flawed morality is exposed. He starts to see himself as infallible, a god shaping the world in his image. This is the danger of political extremism. It starts with what seems to be noble aspirations, but ends in domination. Light's story warns us that concentrated power, even with good intentions, inevitably leads to unimaginable cruelty. Death Note is more than a story about a notebook or a rivalry between Kira and L. It's a reflection of our world, a cautionary tale about the corrupting influence of power and the fragility of human morality. Light Yagami isn't just Kira, he's an archetype, a reflection of every dictator who believed they could reshape the world in their image. He represents the ordinary person who, when given unchecked power, reveals the darkness within. Though Death Note centers on Light, he's not really the protagonist of the story. His gradual corruption turns him into the villain. What do you think about him? What would you do in his place? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoy analysis like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's incredibly helpful and deeply appreciated. There should be another video on your screen right now that I'm sure you will enjoy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.